What is up, Evil Dead fans? I'm going to give my ranking of the Evil Dead trilogy and include the remake. Now, I watched a YouTube video. It's Cody Leach. He did a ranking of the Evil Dead films, not Ash vs. Evil Dead, and it was fucking terrible. Okay, I'm gonna give you his list of worst to best. Everybody has their own opinions, whatever. I don't agree with them whatsoever. And I showed that to a bunch of other Evil Dead fans of mine or friends of mine. They're just like, "What the hell was he thinking? Does he really know the films? He's not a fan, obviously, of the films or the trilogy, because nobody would rank it like this." He considered the worst one was Evil Dead 2, then the original Evil Dead, and then Army of Darkness, and he thought the best one was the remake. What? What? Okay. Let's dive into my list. I figured I would do it right because I am a real Evil Dead fan. If you're a real Evil Dead fan, you know what everything's about. What's the good parts? What's the bad parts? And everybody has their own opinion. I understand that. But once I heard his worst and best, or worst one he does, the one he doesn't like the most, and then the one he likes the most, I'm like, dude, okay, I got to make a list. No fancy effects or nothing like that. Just simply my opinion. I'll start off with the worst. The absolute worst one is, at number 4, the 2013 Evil Dead. Why? Because it has nothing to do with the trilogy. The Deadites aren't right. The cabin workshed's not right. The Delta being there, not right. And originally, they even said it's a remake and a reimagining of it. Now, I don't give a shit what was said by Fede Alvarez less than a year ago, where he says, it's part of the same universe. Bullshit! It's part of the same universe. None of it makes sense. The only thing that somebody told me that made sense, they said, if you take just the original Evil Dead, and then you stick the remake behind it, which would happen years later, that could flow together, which is very, very true and very brilliant. I forgot who told me that. I think it was Christopher Hamilton. I think he told me that, and that was very brilliant. But it doesn't jive with the rest of the trilogy. I don't like the Deadites. I don't like the book. I don't like how the spells are in the book, because it just goes by like this stage, this stage, this stage. And it sucks. It sucks. The book sucks. It looks like shit. I mean, they could have put a face on the damn thing. Lyle Lovett. He looks like the book from Evil Dead 2. If you don't know who Lyle Lovett is, look up Lyle Lovett. Nothing against Lyle Lovett. That's an iconic look, Lyle. You better keep that around. But it just sucks. I mean, they try to make it so real. The horror aspect's good. It's a good horror movie. It's just not Evil Dead trilogy worthy. The Deadites don't look like Deadites. They kind of act like Deadites, but they don't really play mind games too much. Just me in the cellar just kind of saying shit. The one thing that got me when Mia's brother, I forgot his name, blew up the cabin because he shot with buckshot a plastic gas tank. What? That's so illogical there. They just blew my mind. I'm like, that can't happen. Anybody knows that. And everybody should know that. If you don't know that, you might want to go back to science class. Also, the whole nail gun thing, they don't shoot like fucking guns. At all. At all. They just don't. They don't do that. Does not work like that. The tip of the nail gun has to be pressed down. That part bugs me. And the steps it takes for the evil to come in the flesh, and it just ends up looking like a burnt out freaking alternative rock grunge singer from the early 90s pops out of the ground. And how do you kill it? Oh, just chop the motherfucker in half. Boo! You know, if that would have been the book in Ash vs. Evil Dead, you would have had one episode. Ash would have been like, okay, so 1, 2, I think 3 people need to be Deadites, and then the thing comes out in the flesh, so I'll kill that one, and then that one, and then when the evil comes in the flesh, I'll just kill it and it's over. Because it just was weak. It was just really weak to me. The book just didn't seem like it sucked. It just sucked. And I really honestly hope They do not make a sequel to that. They need to just leave that alone. Just stick that in the obscure corner of the trilogy that it should be. Stick that over there. And I know they want to make another film, and they're planning on making another film. My personal opinion, if you get any other director, there's only one guy I think can handle it, and that is Eli Roth, the guy who did Cabin Fever. One of the biggest influence was Sam Raimi, the Evil Dead trilogy. He loved it. In the credits of Cabin Fever, he even puts in there fake shimps. And the behind the scenes of that, he even said one of the biggest compliments he could have is that that movie resembles Evil Dead. He's a guy who has the Evil Dead knowledge, who could make that movie into something very great. I think take Fetty, let him do his own shit, and then bring in Eli Roth to direct that film if Sam Raimi does not. And what I think is funny is after that movie came out, Sam Raimi wanted to do Evil Dead, or Army of Darkness 2, which I think that's great. They step right in. He's like, okay, that's all fine and dandy with this remake, but I can do it better. Sam's like, I can do it better, because Sam is better. Sam's great. I don't think it's part of the trilogy. When Cabin in the Woods and Cabin Fever resembles Evil Dead more than the Evil Dead remake, yeah, it's not that good. Okay, let's go with number 3. Now, number 2 and number 3, 10 years ago would have been switched for me. So at number 3 for me is Army of Darkness. Now, I love Army of Darkness. I do. I really, really honestly do. I love the comedic part of it. It's not a horror movie. I hate it when people are like, it's a horror movie, but there was not a gore. Because it's an action-adventure film. That's what it is. And the studio wanted to be separate from the trilogy where they could. It is still one of my favorites. 10 years ago, that and number 2 would have been swapped. I mean, and the thing is, like, I know I have friends who are like who I consider Evil Dead purists, and anything after Evil Dead 2 is garbage to them. But the thing I like about Army of Darkness that really rolled right into Ash vs. Evil Dead is you got more Ash, and you actually had more character development of Ash. And you realize he's a fucking asshole. You didn't know that from the first 2. But that's what I like about it. So you can't really dog on it too much, because that's how you get to know who Ash really is. And he really becomes the hero during that time, and how he's really reluctant to be that hero. So I really like it, but that's still my number 3. Number 2 is the original Evil Dead. Now, the reason why I like that more than Army of Darkness now, it just seems the older I get, the more of the 80s feel about it. I love the feel of all 80s movies. So for me, as a movie in general, and the feel of it, and I love the cabin, and the characters, and the effects, it's great. I mean, for me, that's number 2. It's good. It's good, all around good. It just, from start to finish, it's great. And I know I got friends who I consider Army of Darkness fans because they consider that's like their favorite one. And so that's why, I don't know. I consider myself just an Evil Dead fan altogether of the trilogy. I can respect all parts of it, to an extent the remake. Just because it's a good horror movie, it's just not Evil Dead to me. It's not. Anyways, I can talk about that movie all day and just bitch and gripe about it. So that's my number 2. Number 1 has to be the epic Evil Dead 2, Dead by Dawn. Why? Okay, let's list off a few fucking things right now. Number 1, Ash in the cabin alone was a badass aspect of it. Even though they couldn't get the rights to use this to do the recap, they still made it a good movie. It was still a great movie. And if people can't understand that, let's open up your minds a little bit more here. Another great thing about it, that's when the boomstick came into play. That's when the goddamn chainsaw hand happened. That's when all the cool shit started happening, and the book has the iconic face that a lot of people refer to with the trilogy versus like Army of Darkness or Ash vs. Evil Dead, and especially Evil Dead 1. So it just has that's when the comedy started with the horror, and it worked. It just worked together very well. And if there wouldn't have been an Evil Dead 2, we wouldn't have an Evil Dead trilogy. We wouldn't have Army of Darkness. We wouldn't have Ash vs. Evil Dead. We wouldn't have any of that. None of that at all. That one movie kept the trilogy alive. Plain and simple, it did. It's a great movie. I mean, who doesn't like Henrietta? Who doesn't like the workshed scenes? Who doesn't like the going back in time scene? I mean, there's just so much to it that made it an epic movie that kept the trilogy going. Now, for that guy to put at last, I know that's his personal opinion, but his opinion sucks in my opinion. It just sucks. I mean, just ew, gross. Like my list is like completely backwards from his. Really, it is. But like I said, number 1, Evil Dead 2. I mean, that's when he gets the fucking chainsaw hand. Come on. Number 2, Evil Dead, the original. Number 3, Army of Darkness. Number 4, the remake. Not in the same universe. It's not Evil Dead 4. It's a remake. It's not part of the universe. I refuse to believe that, because it's just not. It's not. So there it is. There's my opinion. There's my rankings. Tell me what you think. Also, the body's all painted up and done for the Ash vs. Evil Dead chainsaw that I'm doing. Looks good, and I'll show it off very soon. I just figured I would pop this video out there and just do it real fast. But it just, that ranking just stunk so bad. And my friend Paris Voorhees, he even put in the comments, because I put it on the Facebook page, so other Evil Dead fans could see that and just be like, what? Huh? And he's like, yeah, it just infuriates him, because he's like, this guy doesn't know shit about the trilogy. He knows nothing. And to just look at it as a horror movie fan, it's like, I mean, he considered the remake number 4, Evil Dead 4, didn't even mention that Army of Darkness is an action-adventure film, not a horror movie. He's like, it wasn't enough gore in there. Well, of course there's no gore in there. Universal Studios wanted it separate. It's a goddamn action-adventure film with comedy, dude. Come on. Do your it's called research. We have the internet. We have that. Look it up. Jeez, man. I know it's his opinion, but it just... It's like, okay, for example, whenever I'm gonna do a whole thing on this later, and I'm just gonna end this video. Like, I want to do a ranking of my favorite Friday the 13th films, and I watched another ranking from somebody else where his least favorite was number 5 because it didn't have the real Jason in there. Okay, now your opinion's biased. You're not ranking it by the movie. You're ranking it because Jason's not in there. And when it comes to Friday the 13th franchise, there's 2 types of fans. There's the Friday the 13th fans, and there's the Jason fans. That is simple as that. My son, he's a Jason fan. He gives me shit because I like number 5. Number 5 is just a good whodunit film. It really goes back to the original. You think it's Jason, but it's really not. And he always gives me shit about it. And he's like, oh, Jason wasn't even in there. Dad, how can you like that? I'm like, it's just a good movie. You watch it the first time and you get to the end, you're like, what? Then you rewatch it and you're like, oh, it all makes sense. It all ties together. It's a big web of fun. All right, so I'm going to let you guys go. Tell me what you think in the comments of my ranking. And I'm sorry if you like the remake more than me, that's fine. Like I said, it's a good horror movie. It's just not Evil Dead for me. So until next time, you guys stay groovy.